And why I say that is because that one incident, that one night at the Survivor Series was in the makings for about 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And everything we did with The Rock, everything he said and every action and everything was just so carefully calculated and carefully crafted for 3 months building up to that one night. And the thing that was amazing to me is when it happened that night at the Survivor Series, and I had the, I was lucky to be in the house at the time. When it first happened, there was silence in the arena. And the reason being is that nobody saw it coming. But once it happened, and then people started, putting together, the last 3 months and everything leading up to it, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. But I'm most proud of that because to me, that was writing at its best. I mean, there was a story, there was a build-up, and everything meant something. And that was by far, the best angle, that I think that I was involved in.
And Poncho Jones, who asked that one, also wants to ask, what are your thoughts looking back on the Billionaire Ted skits?
Well, I thought those were ridiculous when they were happening. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't like them then. I don't like them now. I just, I don't like to use the word desperation, but, I was involved in those. I think I was in like 1 or 2 of them, and, I didn't like them back then. I don't like them now. I mean, I wasn't writing at the time, and I wasn't really involved in the creative, and I mean, if I was, I would have just tried of a different way to get the point across. I think a lot of that was just a personal attack at Ted Turner, and, I didn't know Ted Turner, and I just, me personally, I just felt that was wrong.
At this point, you jumped ship, or at least this was late 1999. You jumped ship to the WCW. Was there any reason behind your jump?
I'd say the number one reason was that I honestly felt that I had accomplished all I possibly could accomplish at the WWF. Back then, I mean, we reached the peak where we couldn't go any higher. I mean, in my professional opinion, we had gone as high as we were going to get. And I am a guy that was always, I mean, not anymore now, but I was a guy back then that, I thrived on challenge. It was always the challenge. And, reaching the success we did, that challenge was no longer there for me. So basically what I looked at was, WCW and where they were and the position they were in, and I had the opportunity to try to go there and do it all over again. And, that was the most appealing thing.
Were you prepared for the politics that were involved in WCW?
No. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't stupid. I knew there were politics, but I was nowhere near prepared for the level of politics because I didn't have to deal with that at the WWF. And part of the reason was because I was protected by Vince. And, Vince always took care of me, and, Vince really made sure that nobody really messed with me. When I went to WCW, I was on my own. And, I mean, there was just a sea of people from day one who just wanted my head. And, I mean, I realized that a week into the job. And, there was no protection. I mean, I was open game. And, I never thought it would be, the level that it was.
Can you walk us through or tell us what happened the weekend of Sold Out 2000 when everything went down with you departing from WCW and subsequently Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and all those guys leaving WCW as well?
Well, I can't tell you all that because I wasn't there.
Right.
I can tell you that I'll never forget. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was at WCW for 3 months, and I was miserable. And that same day, I was on the phone with my attorney, telling him, I don't care what you have to do. You've got to get me out of this deal. I don't care what I've got to do. I mean, that's how miserable I was after 3 months. And it's just ironic because that same day I had a meeting with Bill Bush, and I think Hogan was supposed to be there and Flair was supposed to be there, and we were supposed to talk about an angle and whatnot. But, of course, when I got to WCW, nobody was there but Bill Bush. Now, keep in mind, I was on the phone with my attorney an hour earlier telling him, you need to get me out of this.
Right.
So basically, at that point, Bill Bush, sits me down and says, Vince, we want to take a change in direction. And, you've got to keep in mind now, in the first 3 months that I was there, before I came on board, the last rating that the WCW did, and it was the show where Benoit and Bret Hart had a 3-segment match.
Right.
The rating of that show was a 2.6. 3 months, when I got called into this meeting, the rating was up to a 3.5. So 2.6 to 3.5 in a matter of 3 months. So now they're telling me they wanted to take a change in direction, and I'm sitting there knowing full well this is all politics. I mean, it was so blatantly clear to me. And, Bill Bush basically said to me, we want you to be a part of a committee. Meanwhile, I was hired as the guy in charge.
Right.
So as soon as he said that to me, I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, I saw that as my out. And I almost saw that as, well, look, you hired me to do this, and now you're saying a part of my, being a part of a committee. And I was really looking at that as, oh, man, thank God they're going to breach my contract here,
Right.
So I basically just looked at Bill Bush, and I said, well, thank you very much, Bill. I said, but that's not what what I was hired to do. So I'm really not interested in being a part of a committee. I said, so I'm going to go home. I said, contact me, let me know what we're going to do about my contract, but I'm really not interested in what you've just presented me with. And I went home. And, that weekend when the pay-per-view went down, I mean, that's when all that stuff broke down with, Shane and Guerrero and those guys. But, I mean, I wasn't there for that, so I really don't know, firsthand how that went down.
When you returned with Eric Bischoff, how did you two get along?
We didn't get along. And, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to speak for Eric, but neither one of us trusted each other. I mean, it was just that simple. I mean, Eric, from a personal level, never did anything to me. I can't say a bad word about him. I mean, it wasn't like that. But, I mean, I can say, for whatever reason, probably because it is the wrestling business and, you just have a tendency to become paranoid, I never trusted Eric. I mean, I never trusted him from day one, and I'm sure he would say the same exact thing for me. But in the situation, Eric and I didn't have a choice. I mean, we were put in that situation to work together, and, we had to go out there and work together. And, again, it wasn't the best situation for me. I'm sure it wasn't the best situation for Eric, and, as things turned out, it just didn't work out for anybody.
What are you comfortable telling us about Bash at the Beach 2000 and your incident with Hulk Hogan?
I'm not comfortable really talking about it at all, but, what I will say is that entire incident was nothing more than, an incident about money, an incident about greed, an incident about ego. It was nothing more than everything about the wrestling business that I hate. And I'm not going to go into detail about it. I have nothing bad in the world to say about Hulk Hogan. I understand why it happened the way it did, but, it happened for all the wrong reasons. And that's basically all I can really say about it.
In TNA, when they were talking about bringing Hogan in for the last year's pay-per-view, I don't even know if you were around at this point, but were you afraid of any confrontations with Hogan?
No, I was around, and they told me to go home because, you know, Hogan and his attorney wouldn't come if I was there. And that was fine with me, but, you know, I had no problem working with him. I would work with Hulk Hogan tomorrow. I've never let I've never let anything get in the way of business. I mean, you know, never. And I mean, the bottom line is, I would do something with Hulk Hogan tomorrow if that were necessary. I don't dislike the guy. I give him all the credit in the world for putting the wrestling business on the map. He's an icon. You know, he's a legend. I really feel bad that he feels the way about me that he does. But me personally, I don't have a hatred bone in my body for Hulk Hogan whatsoever.
Now, many of your critics, mostly on the internet, pick on you for becoming the WWE World Champion. How would you